Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Holskonect, Field Representative here in Washington State with Oceana, and I'm so happy to be talking with Chelalakem Pamela Bond today. She is a councilwoman on the Snohomish Tribal Council, the Fish, Wildlife, and Environment Director for the tribe, as well as founder and co-director of the community organization Salish Sea Environmental Education and Action. She's a cultural educator and traditional teacher for the Duwamish Longhouse and Cultural Center, and a traditional plant medicine and food specialist. Welcome, Pamela. It's good to see you again on Zoom.
Hail. Good afternoon.
Thanks
nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I can't wait till we can see each other again in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to kind of dive right in helping folks get to know you and some of the work that you're doing. Is there a time, like maybe a defining moment, where you feel like you fell in love with the ocean?
That question is I'm not quite sure how to answer that. As an Indigenous woman from the Salish Sea, Salmon Nations, Canoe Nation people, I don't think I could pick out one defining moment to fall in love with where we come from and where we live. It's who we are, and I just don't think I could pick one.
I'm sure too many memories and connections to the water.
Absolutely. You know, when you ask me that, I think about being a little girl going to pick bull kelp with my dad, or scooping salt water into bowls and waiting for the whole day to pass for it to dry and see the salt in the bottom of the bowl and take it home, or being on canoe journey, or just I just think of or and man, there's no way to pick.
Sure. I would imagine. I mean, it sounds like some of your earliest memories are connected to the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about what the work that you're doing with Salish Sea Environmental Education and Action. Can you tell us more about your organization?
Sure. Well, I do focus a lot on community, all community, not just Indigenous community, but I like to focus on action that's based around Indigenous thought, philosophy, and a way to walk upon the earth. And so we do a lot of stuff with young people around protection, and I also do a lot of decolonizing activism work, where we go in to activist groups, environmental groups, and kind of tear it down to its bare bones, and then kind of try to help them build from a foundation of an Indigenous perspective. And that's what we do.
Yeah, that's important work, and I think we're more powerful together. When we come together, Indigenous and non-Indigenous folks, and having worked with you in the past, that perspective is so valuable. So I so appreciate the work that you're doing. So I'm curious, with water being so sort of interwoven to, it sounds like, from your youngest memories, what do you feel are the most important things that we can do to protect the waters? If there are folks that are joining us, and viewers, that they want to take action, but maybe they're not sure what that first step should be, what would you say to people who want to find that first step to take?
Walk softly on the earth. Maybe the first things to start with are your consumerism, the way we consume, what you consume, Um, we could start with the smallest of things, like choosing to purchase your diabetes water in a plastic bottle. You know, are you purchasing your soda in something that's recyclable? Because we know plastic isn't really recyclable. It takes so many plastic bottles just to recreate one, because only a very small portion of plastic is actually being reused. And it's one of our biggest killers in the water, becoming microplastics and um, uh, tricking our salmon into thinking it's phytoplankton. And then, you know, we had a few months back, well, maybe several months back now, we had a whale woman who died. She was very full, but she was starving, and she died with 80 pounds of plastic in her tummy. And, you know, that's, I think, whether or not we are buying, purchasing, using plastic is really important, and whether or not we're choosing to, as consumers, to demand that psychotic corporations are creating something that's biodegradable all the time, not just some of the time. And we could choose to use glass, or we could choose to use get our even in a carton of milk, if our, you know, they're completely biodegradable. They might be waxed, but they're way more biodegradable than that plastic. And just small places like that. And then where are we? Where are we, what are we choosing to do for vacations? I mean, are we vacationing where we're at? How are we choosing to get there? Are we, those big cruise ships are dumping oil sludge into the water. They're dumping millions of gallons of feces into the water. You know, where's their garbage going? What are they doing with their garbage? Things like that. I think we just have to start thinking about in our piece of Mother Earth that we're standing on. What are we doing to make that spot better? Yeah, I think that's important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that you know, you mentioned plastics in the Salish Sea here, that we're seeing our fish consuming. I saw a study recently that there were, you know, microplastics, nanoplastics found in our shellfish, and so we're seeing the effects you know, all across our marine environment. So yeah, I think it's important, even for folks who maybe are not right on the shore, use that plastic bottle and thinking about where it goes.
Right.
Yeah, and I know that the cruise ships are starting up from Seattle again pretty recently here, so it's good to raise that point. We need to be thinking about these impacts to the oceans, to our waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for
Right. And I really feel like, I apologize for interrupting. We could probably erase that. I feel like when we're talking about you know, our salmon being affected by microplastics, when we're talking about the whale people and all the other beings in the water, and you're talking about our shellfish, and these are all part of our a natural diet of our indigenous people. Not just the fact that everybody consumes them and they're yummy and wonderful food, but they're traditional foods. And if you can't consume your traditional foods, that becomes part of genocide. That becomes part of a cultural genocide. And I think people should also consider that when we're destroying the water, that we're also destroying not only all of us as a whole, but we're destroying indigenous populations and culture. have to think about.
It's absolutely. I mean, it's seems so linked to a whole way of life, I guess, from a non-Indigenous perspective. You know, having grown up on Snohomish ancestral lands and always so enjoying the seafood that we have here. Yeah, I've always you know, found it to be considered it part of my life, but I think that there's a deeper cultural connection there, as you're mentioning, that we need to be thinking about. Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up. So you know, as we are working to reduce plastics and pollution and you know, recover our orcas and salmon populations here, I think are, you know, important pieces too. What is your vision for how we move forward with conservation of the ocean and of our waters?
Well, first I want to see us Yahao. That's a word from our creation stories, and actually it means to push forward together. It means that it can only be completed together. And so I would like to really see our people working together, but working together from an Indigenous point of view all across Mother Earth for all of our oceans, not just the Salish Sea. Indigenous people everywhere have been caretakers of the earth, and I think these colonial ideas have really become the ruin of the environment. And I think that if we start to ask the people where we're at in the world, who are the Indigenous people that were the caretakers here, and we get a perspective of people who had for all time been the caretakers, not the owners of the earth or the land or the water or the air, but the caretakers of that. And I think that what we've lost is the Indigenous perspective and a philosophy and a way of life. And I'm not saying to appropriate it, but I'm saying to work together and see what happens. For an example, you know, maybe you know, just here in the Salish Sea area, we in 1805, Lewis and Clark came through, and in their journals and their diaries, they wrote that they were able to walk across some of the tributaries of the Columbia River on the backs of the silver salmon without sinking. And if you can imagine that you can't do that at all. I mean, some of the tributaries of the Columbia River are just wide and huge, and can you imagine being able to walk across on salmon? And then, you know, and they were still like that, you know, in the 1850s during the Indian Wars, and even into the 1930s. There, I have a picture of my father with a salmon taller than him, and he was like 12. And that's a big salmon. That's a big salmon. And you know, and then in my father's generation, they would, you know, the new kids would ice skate on the ponds, and they weren't allowed to because they were told, oh, you know, those ponds aren't gonna, that can kill you. So the kids were able to go with cloth or bread sacks, because bread sacks used to be made out of cloth, and they were poor kids, and they wrapped their shoes up, and they would go out into the Tacoma tide flats, and they would ice skate on the ice in the tide flats, in the mud flats, right? And When my father was a little boy, that's when the mills came in, and they knew they couldn't ice skate out there even in the winter because the water wasn't freezing anymore, because the water that would come out of the mill they would just let it out everywhere, and the water didn't freeze, and then they were told, you can't eat anything out of there. So just in that time, just in the 30s and 40s, that was, the beginning of, and there was still salmon super tall, right? But I'm just saying, we have to think about, just in this short amount of time, the environmental impact of not working together, of not viewing the world from an Indigenous perspective, has basically polluted us and destroyed us. And we have to figure out how we can get that back, how we can work together, how we can become a community and good world citizens together.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about walking on the backs of salmon. I mean, that image is just amazing.
Right?
Amazing to
That's
think
not too,
about.
that's like 380-year-old grandmas ago,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
1805, but just even in the 1930s, having the salmon as tall as a 12-year-old,
Yeah,
right? That's not
yeah.
very long ago.
It's not. It's not. So yeah, I think you raise an important point. We've seen a lot of change in a fairly short time. So yeah, we need to be working together to, change that trajectory, get those big salmon back. It sounds amazing. A salmon as tall as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So another question I have for you, do you have a favorite place on our coast, or maybe it's within the Salish Sea? You have a favorite place on the water that you like to go?
Yeah, but if I tell everybody, everybody will go there. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to tell you. I really don't want to tell you, because I feel like that's my spot.
That's okay.
My spot.
That's
But
okay.
I think every place on the coast, in the Salish Sea, has the ability to become somebody's favorite spot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to love it and take care of it like the first people. Love it. Love your spot. Love your favorite place. Take care of it. Speak out for it. It can't speak out for itself.
Mm.
Even the whale woman who carried her baby around the Salish Sea 4 times on her nose, over 2,000 miles, she was speaking out. Look what has happened to my baby. Can you imagine putting your baby who died out in front of your face and up above your head for all the world to see for 2,000 miles? Yeah. Even a whale woman has spoke out. We certainly, as humans, with this speak that we speak, should be able to speak out and love the place we live, and do it with respect and wisdom, generosity, and be courageous enough to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, as you say, being sort of the voice for what we're seeing, and sharing that with our decision makers. It's a really powerful way to take action on
Yeah.
some of these things. So one of my favorite questions, what is your favorite sea creature?
Oh, well, I am the daughter of the sea monster man, so I would have to say Swaklam. That's my favorite sea creature.
Can you tell us more of this? I don't know that I've heard more of this.
You've
This
never heard
story.
of a sea monster?
I've not heard of the. Well, I've heard of a sea monster, but I'd love to hear more of the story. Is there more of a story of the sea monster man?
He was just my daddy, my hero. There is a story. There is a true history that was documented, but I don't know if today is the time and place for that story. It involves taking heads away, and it's not it's not a very well. I'm proud of it, but I don't know if the world's ready to hear it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, it's been really, really good to talk with you, and I so appreciate you making time to talk with us here more. So we have here a way to help support Pamela's work. This link goes to People of the Confluence, which is a sister organization where you can donate to support Pamela's work with Salish Sea Environmental Education and Action. So please check that out. And are there other ways that folks can get involved, maybe on social media to find you, Pamela?
Yeah, we have on social media, we have Salish Sea Environmental Education and Action. It's a like group, and we put information out there all the time. We also have a yehow.org, YEHOW.org. That has a lot to do with frack gas in Snohomish County, and we have lots of links about ways to educate yourself about the harms of frack gas in your home, aka liquid natural gas. We like to call it dirty fracked gas. And I'm also on social media as Fighting Woman's Savage Medicine. It's a traditional, it's information about plant medicine and ways to use that instead of pharmaceuticals.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing, and I encourage folks to look up all of those resources. And thank you again for joining us today. It's been really good to talk with you, Pamela. And I'll share that our next Ocean Steward Spotlight will be coming up on September 23rd with Dr. Nevada Winrow, and we hope you can join us for that as well.